China has ascended to the world's second-largest economy through the greatest 40-year run in economic history. China's GDP grew by more than 9% per year from 1980 to 2019, and during that time, more than 800 million people were lifted out of extreme poverty. But the good times may be coming to an end. The capital that funded China's growth is drying up. The energy that powered its manufacturing is getting more expensive, and the unfettered growth of its real estate market has hit a brick wall. China's economy faces the most ominous challenges since the Great Leap Forward that resulted in 3 years of famine and 10 seconds of millions of deaths. But China's geopolitical rivals should not be celebrated. It is the top trading partner for more than 120 of the world's 195 countries, which means trouble in the Middle Kingdom can and will affect everyone. In this video, we'll be unpacking the enormous debt bubble that Chinese leadership is attempting to unwind, the challenging global energy market conditions making things worse, and the most likely policy choice that the CCP must make in order to stay solvent. But if the Chinese economy is a Ponzi scheme poised to pop, then we need to first understand the 4-decade hot streak that preceded the present day. China's remarkable economic growth story begins in the 1970s, when Deng Xiaoping initiated a series of economic reforms known as reform and opening up. This marked a significant shift from the centrally planned economy that defined China's history under communism. But he knew that he couldn't completely turn a communist country into a capitalist one and still maintain control. So he limited the open market forces to 4 special economic zones. In these fenced-off areas, trade was conducted in a more market-oriented system, encouraging foreign investment, private entrepreneurship, and global trade. These special economic zones were wildly successful, and China experienced its first explosion of growth in the early 1980s. Villages turned to metropolises, agriculture became more productive, and standards of living rose. Places like Shenzhen became manufacturing powerhouses. It also began to fill the Chinese balance sheet, as most of the companies that flourished were state-owned enterprises. SOAs are firms where the state owns a significant or majority share of the company. They often receive subsidies, low-cost credit, and preferential regulatory treatment from the government in order to succeed in strategic sectors such as energy, telecommunications, transportation, and finance. They're also required to abide by government mandates and public policy objectives like employment quotas. The CCP found a model where they could funnel profits from private industry into their centrally planned worldview, and if those companies could access global capital markets, all bets were off. Which leads us to the second pivotal moment in China's economic set, joining the World Trade Organization in 2001. The world, by committing to WTO standards for reducing tariffs, increasing transparency, and protecting intellectual property rights, they were able to further integrate itself into the global economy and attract even more foreign investment. In the years following China joining the WTO, foreign direct investment grew rapidly. In 2002, inflows were around $53 billion, and by 2008, they'd reached $108 billion, as hundreds of millions of Chinese saw their wages increase, their capital flowed into banks. This accelerated China's investment-led growth model, as China's banking system operates through window guidance, where banks are instructed by the government on lending quotas rather than market forces. This has led to rampant overinvestment, fueling an unsustainable property bubble. The CCP has greenlit massive infrastructure projects, promoted urbanization of what were once villages, and developed numerous export-oriented industries. All that construction and manufacturing relies on energy imports as the world's largest energy consumer. China's energy mix is dominated by fossil fuels, in addition to approving 2 new coal power plants for construction every week. China is also the world's largest crude oil importer. They import over 10 million barrels of crude per day. That's more than the United States and India combined. As a result, China sits on a perilous balancing act of using debt to finance growth, needing healthy export markets to accept their goods, and being reliant on global energy markets to keep their manufacturing businesses sustainable. Now, let's talk about real estate. In the early stages of implementing an investment-led growth strategy, a little bit of extra debt is okay. Loans used to build a highway connecting major metros, or building an airport in a mid-sized city unlocks economic growth. But eventually, you need to transition to a consumption-led economy, where the wealth of your population and their demand for goods and services can fuel your growth. If that doesn't happen, then central planners need to keep rolling investments into worse and worse opportunities. that looks like roads leading to nowhere, a second airport in that mid-sized city, and enormous real estate development projects without tenants. China has built an excessive amount of housing with a population around 1 billion. The country has enough vacant homes to house up to 3 billion people. There are approximately 7.2 million unsold homes. Yet that doesn't even account for sold but uncompleted properties or homes purchased as investments, but intentionally left vacant. Excessive construction has led to entire neighborhoods of high-rise residential complexes sitting empty, with some provinces facing completion timelines of over 20 years for unfinished projects. That's why Chinese real estate is worth at best 1/10 of its current price. That may be an underestimation, but it's certainly not an exaggeration, and this is a symptom of their investment-led export-reliant system. The Chinese business model doesn't really work. If you're rewarding all your workers with higher wages, as that would hurt Chinese exports to the easiest way for households to participate in Chinese wealth creation has been through the real estate market. Lever up, buy properties. Those prices go up. Everybody's happy. That's one of the reasons property accounts for over 60% of Chinese household wealth, versus just 23% in the United States. As a result, the real estate sector has accounted for around 29% of China's GDP.